Good afternoon. I'd like to follow up on my most recent video about online education. And today I'm going to talk about the two factors that I consider most important for success that are also, in the long run, the two biggest obstacles, impediments for a lot of people. The first one is time management. You have to be able to fit this into your schedule, either teaching or studying. But for most people, they're busy adults. If you're teaching as an adjunct, you probably have a full-time job. You may have family, or at least a dog, like I do. You may have a house, an apartment you've got to maintain. Just doing laundry and stuff like that can take time. So you've got to be able to fit it in and not make it the thing that you kind of do when you can't. It's got to have a priority. Online education requires time management. Now, if you can master this skill, you have a huge amount of the struggle already won. But how do you do it? There are a multitude of ways. I would say probably more ways to master time than there are students and professors. You get 4 online education students and professors together, you're probably going to have 7 different means of managing time. The way that I do it is that I reserve time, usually in the evening, as just a base, what I'm going to do. Just the core. And one of the reasons is that there are a lot of things that I need to do during daylight, basic housekeeping and stuff like that. Sometimes after dinner, when it's starting to get a little darker, I can't do them, so I can still teach. And then I'll do other stuff, other teaching, other online work during the day as I can fit it in. But I have that core time in the evening and build around that. This has worked for me. It may not work for a lot of people. There are some people that may want a more rigid schedule, and they can set this up for themselves. That whatever works, works. And this is a principle that I adhere to an awful lot and that I preach about. It's whatever works for you is the right way. There really is no wrong way. That really matters is the success. And if you can get the time, you can make the time, not just fit it in, but make the time for online teaching, online learning. You've got a good chunk of that. You've got a good chunk of your success already achieved. So it's something to think about at least. Look for solutions ahead of time. And assume that you're going to spend as much time reading and maybe doing assignments as you spend in the classroom, probably more than you spend in the classroom on discussion forums and things like that. Now, as a professor, you're going to spend an awful lot of your time grading, which can be sort of grudge work after a while when you're grading, say, 60 people doing the same forum assignment or doing the same worksheets for papers. You've got to put the time in and realize that it may not be the most exciting part of the day. Maybe after the first 5, you're okay, but after 10, it can be difficult just because of the repetition. Don't blame the students, just blame the way the system is set up. And for that matter, maybe not even blame yourself. It's just something you have to cope with. So, time management is absolutely critical. Right up there and related to it, at least as I see it, is the matter of self-motivation. You have to push yourself to do this. You're not going to have a boss saying you have to be in here at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. No, you're your boss. To a large extent, you set up your schedule, you do the work, you prioritize it, and you've got to be able to kick yourself in the butt. No one's going to do it for you. And you've got to be able to do this as a routine. One of the things I discovered, especially being an online graduate student, was that it's hard. It's hard to complete. I did get my master's, my second master's in military history this way. It took me 6 years as opposed to a year and a half doing the traditional pre-computer route at Duquesne University. My first master's I completed after a little less than 2 years as a full-time standard brick and mortar student. Including the thesis, it took a little less than 2 years. And this is in some ways easier when you devote all your time to it and you have fewer distractions. The second one took 6 years. And this was as a working adult. I had usually 2, sometimes 3, for a while even 4 jobs, because I was, besides teaching at 2 places as an adjunct brick and mortar, I had my full-time job at APUS, and I was also doing some consulting work for a company in India on textbooks. So yeah, I was a bit busy. I also bought a house in the meantime. That can take some time and attention. Moving. There was also the matter of a bottleneck in government funding, which my bosses, the upper bosses at APUS, responded to by adding additional students with the idea that full-time faculty might not make their quotas otherwise. So I was doing double the work for a while at APUS, and they also had a project that didn't work out where they were using full-time faculty to move courses and basically write them into a new format without changing much. It was almost like secretarial work, but we had to do it. And this was reserved for full-time employees. So that was a bit of a trying time, especially as it was the same time that I was buying the house. And I actually did take a couple months off from graduate school. Between the house and the extra work, I kind of had to. I had no choice in the matter. Now this is risky, as one of my former brick and mortar colleagues used to say that according to his research, students who take a gap, take a break at any time, 75% of them never come back to college. So when somebody said, I'm going to take a semester off in order to, I don't know, straighten things out, find myself, whatever, especially if the reason was vague, his answer was to say, have a nice life, because chances are you weren't going to see them again. And so I was taking a bit of a risk in terms of self-motivation and schedule as far as taking that couple months off. At the same time, I always made sure I took part of the summer, usually a couple months, because this is just part of the academics tradition that you take summers off. It starts in kindergarten. And I found out that was very healthy, that if you have a regularly scheduled break like that, you can attend other things. For me, it was cutting grass, and it was doing outside work. It was going in the pool. It was fishing. It was also working at my other jobs. So there were many reasons to take the summer off. And I always came back. I would get the emails from grad school, oh, you didn't sign up for classes, where did you go? And I'd sign up for classes that started in August or September. And it was usually a couple months, and yeah, it did add time to my second graduate program, but I think that the scheduled, managed rest, not a break, but a rest I had basically been taking since I was 6 every time I was in school, I think that was very healthy. And that worked into my motivation in time management. Maybe not the daily time management, but the annual time management. So that was very important to me. And as a sign that that this was a success, I actually did earn the degree. It took about 6 years, like I said, which is about 4 times longer than I would have liked, but I did reach the finish line. Remember this too, it's a cliche, but it works. This is a marathon, not a sprint. I may have made the mistake of thinking of it as a sprint, but it became a marathon. And coupled with that was I couldn't take as many classes at once as I had as a full-time student um, back in the 80s when I was much younger. I was in my 20s. I couldn't take 3 classes at a time like I did at Duquesne. I could basically do one. I think there was one interval where I was ending a class and basically turning in a paper while I was just starting another. It was like a 1 week overlap. And that was quite enough. That wasn't difficult, but I could see the issue of trying to take that two at the same time that started at the same time, or one even starting halfway through the other one. So, yeah, that's time management, and that's also motivation. You've got to be able to keep yourself going through the long term. Now, there's something too that I've heard from Navy SEALs. Now, I would never qualify as a Navy SEAL, but I try to learn from everybody, and that includes and especially the people who can do things that I can't. One of the things I've learned from Navy SEALs is that the things that are worthwhile are the easiest ones to quit and the hardest ones to complete. And I think an online degree certainly ranks up there. Maybe not like getting the Eagle and Trident, but it's worthwhile. Now, it is difficult. It does take sustained effort. It's not something that you can just sprint through, like I said. You've got to be able to do this over a period of years. And that's a challenge. I'll say it can be very difficult at times. And people quit. One of the reasons why people quit is it's easy to quit. Now, the SEALs have a thing during qualifying is that they make it very easy for them to quit. All they have to do is walk up and ring a bell. And online education is pretty similar for a student. All you have to do is just not sign up for classes. You can think of reasons, not even excuses, but absolute concrete reasons to quit that will justify this. Time and time management are really key among them. I just didn't have enough time. I was like super busy and couldn't fit this into my schedule. I decided it wasn't worth it comes up. I'm getting a low rate on investment, which is, for a lot of programs, of both brick and mortar and online varieties, can be very, very valid. I've known people who have left graduate school because they figured out that it wasn't really going to help them with their earning power. It wasn't worth the money and especially the time, but it wasn't worth the money and the loans. Now, as an online professor full time, I was getting my courses for free, so I didn't have to think about the money, but I had to think about the investment in time, which can be a more precious commodity even than the dollars. So there are plenty of reasons to quit, not just excuses, not just I do like something. It's easy. Quitting is the easy part. And keeping motivated through those temptations is that's key. I never really thought about quitting my political science graduate program back in the day of Duquesne. I was in and out in under 2 years. But for the 6 year program, I had them dozen times that I had reasons, I had excuses, I was getting burned out, whatever. All I had to do was ring that bell and not come back. But I stayed motivated, and I see others in the same situation. Um, I know the struggle. I've been there. It's very easy to go out and ring that bell. And even if you don't know why you're doing it then, if you don't have a full picture, you'll make something up later while you regret leaving the program. So you've got to keep going. What motivates you? That's up to you. I think a good part of it for me was sheer stubbornness. And maybe I was just too stupid to quit. Montesquieu said that a rational army would run away. Sometimes I thought that a rational student would quit. Um, there are plenty of temptations, all of which I was able to ignore, overcome, or whatever. But I got through it. And it all depends on the person, whether it's stubborn stupidity, like on my part, vanity, which also played into it with my second degree. The fact that I wanted it since I was 12, that was a big reason. Oh boy, I get to major in World War II. Where was this all my life? So, yeah, there are a lot of things that come in. I've had students too who said, I'm going to college to set an example for my children. I had one student, several at least, who said, I like being able to set an example that I'm doing my homework while my kids are doing their homework. It's good enough for their dad, it's good enough for their mom, it's good enough for them. I'm setting an example. That's perfectly valid, and I just give them a big applause for that. I've had other people that came in and said, I'm the first one in my family to go to college. This is the only way I can do it. I want to be the pioneer in my family. This is good. This works. And I really applaud them, because being the first in your family to go to college, that is extra challenging. There's an especially high dropout rate for being among the pioneers. There can also be a lot of pressure if you're not. You can come from an achievement-related family that drives people into higher education, which I've seen, and you have a lot of pressure on you in order to finish because everybody else did. And not being the college graduate, you end up being the odd person out, and it can create tensions and insecurities. Yeah, I've seen that. But I think it's tougher for the people that are first in their families. Now, for me too, I had another bit of pressure that kept me going, and that was the fact I was already a professor. That I knew what to expect. I wasn't going to get shocked by the workload of graduate school because, well, to use the Civil War expression, I had already seen the elephant, that I knew what it was. I had warned other people this is going to be more challenging than you expect. It's not undergraduate 2.0. So I had already seen that. There was also the pressure that because I was already a professor, I damn well better do well. I didn't have excuses. I had a stronger skill set and experience than most graduate students, so I had better do well. And that kept me going too. Just the fact that I didn't want to screw up. And being a professor, I wanted to finish. and it's pressure on myself. Um, that it was that was a driving force. That I didn't want to be the professor that couldn't handle what my students were taking on after they finished their undergraduate work. And believe me, a lot of my students have gone on to graduate professional law schools. They've gone to PhD programs over the long run. They've gone on to great jobs. To some extent, they were the standard that I had to meet or exceed. There goes the self motivation. And there goes the time management, too, that serves the self motivation. That I had better get this down, I had better allocate the time correctly, even with all those distractions. So they are tied together, time management and self motivation. And as always, the motivation really has to come from you more than it does for the brick and mortar world. You may have something general that you have family saying you better finish college. You may have something where a boss may be paying for it and saying you have to finish in order to have a future at this company or agency. But they're not going to be the ones kicking in the butt to get into a classroom at 8 in the morning. They're not going to be the ones setting you up for success and giving you an assignment to go to a study hall like you did in high school, which, by the way, I always thought was a giant waste of time. Study halls I'd rather spend in the library and then maybe taking a nap. But I always hated study halls. But they have their purpose. That some people really, really need them. You get to college, you're not going to have them. Study hall is whatever you want it to be, when you want it to be, and when your schedule allows. It's up to you. And you've got to be able to motivate yourself. You've got to be able to get yourself into the online classroom long enough and at the right time to finish your assignments, to finish your forums on time. And some professors are not very forgiving when it comes to that. I tend to be a little more so because maybe it's because I've been through the online process myself. And the fact that I was a non-traditional student, I tend to be understanding of people who have deployments, they have extra work shifts, they have family issues, health issues. I've seen them all. And in the civilian world, at least, I've experienced them all. I haven't had a PCS move. I haven't had TDY. I haven't had deployment because I never served. But I can understand on a cerebral level what those obstacles are. And I do tend to be a little more flexible. Others tend to be very rigid. I'm not that guy. But you're going to have to be ready for the ones who may be less forgiving, who may be less understanding and more rigid with time frames and less flexible when it comes to extensions. Be prepared. That can be an obstacle, and that can also put more emphasis on time management. So you'll get different professors, you'll have different minimal requirements, but still you should get into the routine of being able to meet all of them and without demanding that the system change just for you. Back to time management. And sometimes too that can be discouraging when just as you have a boss you don't think appreciates you, maybe you have a professor that doesn't appreciate you. Well, you just got to soldier on and get through it. You've got to be able to kick yourself in the butt to motivate yourself to finish the task at hand and build on that to finish the overall task, the mission of earning that degree. So no one said this is going to be easy. The only easy part is quitting. I'm not even going to say the only easy day was yesterday, but the only easy thing is quitting. And the motivation, the routine has to come from you more than the system, more than the instructor. You've got to be able to stick with this. And you've got to be able to trust yourself to be able to do that. Again, going back to the special operations community, years and years ago, I read Colonel Charlie Beckwith's book on the foundation of Delta Force. And they were very unusual in that they never had unit wide physical training. They never went for a run together. Under his leadership, each operator was supposed to do his own physical training. People in Big Army didn't understand it. But he said, I have to be able to trust my people to motivate themselves to be able to perform the mission and do the work that's required. That this self-management, this self-motivation, this was key to the Delta mindset. Now, this is nothing like Delta Force, but you can learn a lesson from those guys. And see the importance of motivating yourself, of doing the work on time. You'll have flexibility when you do it. You're trusted to do it. And if you can't be trusted, you're not going to finish. You're not going to be a part of this. So, see, these are my thoughts, my experience. I've been doing this for a long time. 17 years in the classroom, 16 online. I finished college early, 3.5 years, but I have a year and a half of full-time traditional graduate school and 6 years of part-time in the online version. So these are things I've picked up over the years and things I've learned from my students. Most of whom, by the way, at all the schools I've taught, most of my students overall have been military or veterans. So I try to learn from those people, from all branches, from all specialties. There's always something to learn from students. And I've learned from them about time management in a large extent, and also about staying motivated. When failure is not an option, but quitting is, you better not fail and you better not quit if you want to achieve what you set out to do. So, thank you for your time. Feel free to share. I'm not doing this into an empty room, I hope. I hope that people can get something out of all this, whether you're a professor, whether you're a student, whether you're thinking about online education, you're already in it. Time management and self-motivation remain core impediments, but also core opportunities and requirements for success. So, like I said, share if you want, please do. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There'll be other presentations on online education, also on political science, on history, on critical thinking, on wargaming, my number one hobby. Just as this is my number one occupation, my profession, there'll be more. And some of it will just be downright fun, and some of it may be a surprise. So like, share, subscribe, and please keep it going. Thank you for your time, and have a nice day, the rest of it. And enjoy the World Series, too. I was up all night for Game 3 in LA, and some of you were, too. So I'll see you next time.